to the Black Pearl.
From drunken brawls to career-ruining benders, these Hollywood icons lived dangerously. Join us as we count down the 25 worst intoxicated actors in Hollywood history. Prepare to be amazed and appalled. Number 25. W.C. Fields. Ever heard of a man who hoarded thousands of bottles of whiskey and gin? Meet W.C. Fields, a legend of pre-Prohibition times. Known for his strict discipline with alcohol, Fields never drank anything stronger than gin before breakfast. W.C. Fields was a man known for his strict discipline regarding alcohol. I have never imbibed while sleeping, and I drink nothing stronger than gin before breakfast. William Claude Dukenfield was born above a bar in pre-Prohibition times, and when the Great Experiment started, he hoarded literally thousands of bottles of whiskey and gin in his attic. Even after Prohibition ended, he continued to keep a sizable stash of emergency alcohol in his home, which he explained to Harpo Marx like so: "Never can be sure Prohibition won't be back, my boy." The classic W.C. Fields drinking story is that while on set, he carried a vacuum flask filled with gin martinis that he would refer to as his lemonade.
Harold, are you drinking?
No, I'm not there. I was thinking.
Number 24. Anne Margaret. Imagine starting an affair with Elvis Presley and spiraling into full-blown alcoholism. Anne Margaret's life was a whirlwind of parties and struggles. Her descent began on the scent of RPM, where anxiety drove her to drink. Anne Margaret is known as one of the original sex kittens and a gal who knew how to have a good time. Anne Margaret is best known for starring in Viva Las Vegas with Elvis Presley, one of his better-regarded films. The two stars' attraction to each other was instantaneous, and after the film, they began an affair that lasted until his passing, partying relentlessly the whole time. Anne Margaret's full-blown alcoholism is believed to have started on the set of the student protest drama RPM, where she began drinking to help overcome her anxiety about doing the film's nude scenes. By 1971, she was incapable of separating fantasy from reality, as later she wrote, "I'd drink a fifth of scotch, pass out, wake up, drink some more, and pass out again." Anne Margaret quit drinking for good in 1980 and talked candidly about her life and recovery in her autobiography entitled My Story. During a 1982 interview with Roger Ebert, a waiter offered the sober starlet a cocktail. "I don't drink," she replied shyly, "but I do the hoochie coo." Number 23. Richard Harris. Ever crash a delivery truck into a bridge after a few pints? Richard Harris did, and that's just the start of his wild tales. This Irish actor's love for vodka led to some unforgettable moments. Another lionized member of the O'Toole, Burton, Oliver Reed gang, Richard Harris was every bit the actor and every bit the alcoholic as his inebriated contemporaries. The Irish-born Harris was already causing drunken trouble as a teen, once crashing his father's delivery truck into a too-low bridge after a few pints at the pub. He hit the bridge so hard, he lifted it up off its supports and lodged the truck underneath. When police reported to the scene and asked the lad what happened, he replied, "Sorry, officer, I'm just delivering this bridge to Limerick." Finding acting success first on the London stage and then in Hollywood gave Harris the fame and money that he needed to really start living the way that he wanted, which mostly meant betting whoever struck his fancy, consuming up to 2.5 bottles of vodka a day, and becoming an affable regular in the London drunk tank. His usual, it is reported, was an order of 6 double vodkas, which would be lined up by his friendly bartenders without his even having to ask. Once during a bender, Harris was found lying in the middle of the street by a local policeman. When the cop asked him what he was doing, Harris replied, "The world is spinning." When the officer asked what lying in the street was going to do for that, his answer was, logically, "I'm waiting for my house to go by."
Who would insult me by bidding for my field here in Carrickhill?
Number 22. Tulula Bankhead. What if I told you one actress consumed a quart of bourbon a day mixed with pills and cocaine? Tulula Bankhead's hard partying lifestyle was infamous, and her legendary antics are the stuff of Hollywood lore. Tulula Bankhead was the well-heeled daughter of an Alabama congressman who left home at age 15 to pursue acting in New York. She lived at the famed Algonquin Hotel. Living in the hotel put her in touch with hard drinking society and introduced her to the legendarily inebriated Algonquin Round Table and its crew of notable sots like Dorothy Parker, George F. Kaufman, and Robert Benchley. Her precariously hard partying caused Frank Case, the owner of the Algonquin, to quip, "I can either run this hotel or look after Tulula Bankhead. I can't do both." As she became a working actress, first on Broadway and then in films like Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, she expanded her chemical repertoire. Tulula was known to frequently polish off fifths of whiskey in under 30 minutes, snort poppers, take horse tranquilizers, and mix herself a special cocktail of Coca-Cola and spirits of ammonia. As is the way, all of these assaults on her body could only be absorbed for so long, and her health and beauty began to fade, though her appetite for destruction never did. Toward the end of her life, she consumed over a quart of bourbon a day, mixed with a cocktail of pills both legal and sublegal, as well as cocaine. Number 21. Paul Lynde. Ever heard of a man who got thrown out of bars and harassed police officers regularly? Paul Lynde's sharp wit turned cruel when drunk, leading to some outrageous incidents. Paul Lynde is known as Uncle Arthur in Bewitched, and is the first homosexual person that many post-war Americans were consciously aware of. Lynde loved a spirited social gathering and was a frequent visitor of the many underground gay bars in Hollywood. However, he was also known for getting himself in trouble once he joined in on the drinking. One of Lynde's problems with alcohol was that the solution turned his typically generous wit into something caustic. An inebriated Paul was known to have a cruel talent for finding people's weaknesses and picking them apart, leading to his name getting crossed off more than one invitation list. His problems with watching his mouth while in public only got worse as he got older, and Lynde had incidents of getting thrown out of bars, harassing police officers, and, most shockingly, drunkenly spewing racial slurs during his alma mater's homecoming weekend. After getting involved in a drunken police chase that later led to a DUI, Lynde is reported to have rolled down his window and drawled to the officer in his distinctive lisp, "I'll have a double cheeseburger and a chocolate shake." Number 20. Orson Wells. Orson Wells popularized the Negroni, but his love for alcohol led to a 400-pound frame and erratic on-set behavior. His nightly dinner, 2 rare steaks, and a pint of scotch. Orson Welles' relationship with alcohol began with his father, a nasty drunk whose irresponsibility ended up blowing the family fortune. This led to a 15-year-old Orson to estrange himself from his family, ostensibly until his father quit drinking. The elder Wells, however, never ceased his habit and died of complications due to alcoholism without the two ever reconciling. Wells felt profoundly guilty for this abandonment, a guilt which, ironically, fueled his own drinking habit. While working in Rome on black magic, Wells helped popularize a previously little-known cocktail called the Negroni when he sent a message to a stateside newspaper extolling its virtues. "The bitters are good for your liver. The gin is bad for it. They balance each other out." As Wells's excesses grew, so did his size. The formerly svelte Wells grew to nearly 400 pounds, due in no small part to his nightly dinner, 2 rare steaks and a pint of scotch. His behavior on set became more erratic, and he was known to drink between takes.
And share with you a monochromatic, monophonic hour of entertainment.
Number 19. Ethel Barrymore. Imagine being part of Hollywood's most famous family and battling alcoholism. Ethel Barrymore, the First Lady of the American Theater, struggled with the family curse, but turned her life around. The famous Barrymore clan is acclaimed for their massive talent on the stage and screen, as well as their massive destructive appetites for various vices. one of the family's brightest stars, Ethel Barrymore, who was known as the First Lady of the American Theater, with a career that spanned 6 decades, fell victim to the family curse as well. Ethel began her career in the 1890s and quickly became a bright star of the stage with appearances on both Broadway and the West End. It was during this time that she began to struggle with alcohol, turning to the drink whenever there was trouble in her personal life. Like her brother John, the need to drink began to consume her, but luckily, Ethel was able to take her life back under control as the actress became a teetotaler in her 30s. "No one in my family should drink because it's poison to us," she said. Number 18. Carrie Grant. What if I told you Carrie Grant's battle with alcohol led him to LSD therapy? His journey through enlightenment and chaos is one of Hollywood's most bizarre tales. In the 1950s, screen legend Carrie Grant decided that his alcoholism was probably a bad thing and sought the help of a psychotherapist. This being the 1950s, the psychotherapist in question introduced him to an experimental but promising young drug called LSD. Grant would later go on to become acid's greatest public champion, claiming he was born again from the experience and called the doctor who recommended it "my wise Mahatma." Of course, there are some downsides to enlightenment. When you let go of all worldly concerns, few pause to consider that it also means control of your butthole. According to Grant, we were all unconsciously holding our anus. In one LSD dream, I shit all over the rug and shit all over the floor. Grant's LSD habit wasn't all sunshine and dismembered babies and space penises. His wife went on to report that he became physically abusive to her during this phase, in part because she refused to take it with him. For some strange reason, the bloody space wang story did not convince her.
You got drunk on champagne and climbed out on the roof and stood there naked with your arms out to the moon, wailing like a banshee.
Number 17. John Huston. John Huston directed classics like The Maltese Falcon, but his true passion was drinking and womanizing. His legendary benders even led to saving his life while filming in Uganda. John Huston directed such classics like The African Queen and The Maltese Falcon, but carving his name into cinema history took a distant third to his two favorite pursuits, drinking and screwing. According to the many women with direct experience, the only things longer than Huston's filmography was in his pants. Whenever Huston wasn't swinging his pendulous junk around in front of his kids, he was making good use of it. He was married 5 times and reportedly cheated on every one of his wives. In addition to carrying on the most poorly concealed extramarital affairs this side of JFK, Huston made his mark on Hollywood by churning out classics, often while so drunk that he would frequently doze off in the director's chair. During the filming of The African Queen in Uganda, Huston's Herculean boozing may have saved his life, as well as the movie. He and leading man Humphrey Bogart decided to abstain from the local water and drink only scotch, thus avoiding the dysentery that laid up Katharine Hepburn and much of the crew. According to Bogart, whenever a fly bit Huston or me, it dropped dead.
If all I've said doesn't mean anything to you, then forget it and we'll make it just this.
Number 16. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's love for alcohol matched her love for Pepsi. Her tour rider included vodka, bourbon, gin, and champagne, making her the ultimate party queen. Joan Crawford really loved Pepsi. She was also married to the CEO of PepsiCo, which was awfully convenient. Cola digger cough. Her husband, Alfred Steele, even awarded her a chair on the company board. Given that she was also a popular actress, Crawford was made the official ambassador of Pepsi, touring the country to promote the beverage. And she took advantage of that position to try to drink all of the world's alcohol. Crawford's contract had a rider that would give Keith Richards pause. On each stop of the tour, she requested to be provided with 2/5 of Smirnoff 100 proof vodka, 1/5 of Old Forester bourbon, 1/5 of Chivas Regal Scotch, 1/5 of Beefeater gin, 2 bottles of Moet Chandon champagne, and of course, a case of Pepsi. Number 15. Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole's life was filled with drunken escapades, from assaulting a policeman to setting his bed on fire. His legendary benders are the stuff of Hollywood folklore. According to reports by those who knew him, the deceptively dignified Peter Lawrence of Arabia Toole's life was punctuated by frequent, crazy, drunken escapades. One time, he allegedly assaulted a policeman for no particular reason, aside from that he didn't like cops. We're guessing that his opinion of public servants improved a few years later when firefighters came to his rescue after he lit his bed on fire, and he couldn't remember how. He's also said to have accidentally cut off the tip of his finger during a boating accident, but don't worry, he simply soaked the digit in brandy and then tied it back on. In the morning, he'd realized he'd put it upside down. In 1995, O'Toole appeared on Letterman while riding a camel, which he, of course, had force-fed a full beer. Michael Caine recalled the night he went drinking with O'Toole, and the next thing he can remember, he woke up 2 days later in a strange flat, a few hours before they were both due to be on stage. Caine says, "Somewhere in my life, there is a Sunday missing, and it was the first and last time he tested his alcohol endurance against Peter O. Goddamn Toole." Number 14. Jan Michael Vincent. From the hottest actor on television to barely holding it together, Jan Michael Vincent's descent into alcoholism is heartbreaking. His struggle was captured in behind-the-scenes footage of a low-budget film. There are lighthearted tales of actors getting a little soused on set, and then there are stories of desperation and drunkenness so depressing they're hard to even comprehend. The story of Jan Michael Vincent is, most definitely, the latter. Once the hottest actor on television, thanks to his hit CBS series Airwolf and beefcake looks, Vincent earned a record $200,000 per episode. By the time his role in No Rest for the Wicked, a low-budget B-movie, rolled around, he was a man just barely holding it together. In 1998, the only gigs that would employ him were low-budget exploitation movies, looking to cash in on his name. From threadbare sci-fis to straight-up softcore porn, he said yes to everyone that offered, and then made them regret it. As behind-the-scenes footage from No Rest for the Wicked shows, Vincent was too drunk to deliver his lines, even as other actors fed them to him off-camera. Confused, he would just riff, answering his own lines over and over again until the director could get something usable. At times, he couldn't even hold his head up. Sadly, this was far from rock bottom for the once superstar, who today is so riddled from his drug and alcohol addictions that he's lost a leg in much of his memory. He claims to not remember a vicious car accident that nearly took his life, or his own daughter's age. Number 13. Robert Shaw. Robert Shaw's drinking nearly derailed his legendary Jaws monologue. His love for alcohol, born out of fear, led to some unforgettable and risky decisions on set. Robert Shaw liked to drink. Don't believe him? Just ask. Can you imagine being a movie star and having to take it seriously without a drink? He once said. I agree with Richard Burton that drink gives poetry to life. Drinking for actors is an occupational hazard born largely out of fear. Sadly, the drink giveth, and the drink taketh away. Or at least it nearly did on the set of Jaws. Shaw was due to give a particularly complicated, lengthy, and moving monologue on set one day. Apocalypse Now scribe John Milius had written the first draft. Unfortunately, it was 10 meandering pages, far too long for the scene. Shaw, an accomplished playwright and author, took a crack at it, shaping it into one of the most legendary monologues in film history. He then made the unwise choice, asking director Steven Spielberg if he could have a bit to drink before the scene to loosen up and capture the right energy. Spielberg acquiesced, only to have Shaw show up drunk. Number 12. John Leguizamo. Imagine being so miserable on set that you get drunk to forget. John Leguizamo's time on the Super Mario Bros. Movie led to some wild, booze-fueled incidents. Most people insist the Super Mario Bros. Movie is completely terrible, probably because it is. You'll hear virtually nobody defend it, least of all those who worked on it. Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, who played Mario and Luigi, are no different. Both despised working on the movie, and according to a Leguizamo interview with Vulture, they were miserable almost the entire time. Perhaps the only actor who could get through filming that garbage was a drunk actor, because they got drunk a lot on set, probably to forget why they came to work. One such booze-happy session resulted in Leguizamo breaking Hoskins' hand. As Leguizamo explained, he was drunk and driving the Mario Brothers van. Even while sober, Leguizamo knows he's a bad driver, and here he was driving while very not sober. At one point, Hoskins had his arm around the van's open sliding door. Leguizamo, presumably for no reason besides the booze telling him to, accelerated and quickly stopped. This sent the van door sliding backward and into Hoskins' fingers, shattering them. If you ever lose a bet and have to watch this movie again, check for Mario sporting a cute paint cast on his hand. Luigi did that. The monster. Number 11. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's 2006 DUI arrest was a career disaster. His shocking behavior and anti-Semitic remarks made headlines, leading to a public apology but lasting damage. Mel Gibson's 2006 DUI arrest still ranks as one of the top disasters in celebrity drunkenness. According to the New York Daily News, the Braveheart actor's career has never fully recovered from that fateful night in Malibu, when he referred to a female officer as sugar tits, and asked another officer if he was Jewish because Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world. TMZ also reported that Gibson repeatedly threatened officers, made several other anti-Semitic remarks, and was just awful all around. Gibson eventually released a statement apologizing for his actions. The arresting officer was just doing his job, and I feel fortunate that I was apprehended before I caused injury to another person. I acted like a person completely out of control when I was arrested and said things that I do not believe to be true and which are despicable. I am deeply ashamed of everything I said. Also, I take this opportunity to apologize to the deputies involved for my belligerent behavior. They have always been there for me and my community, and indeed, probably saved me from myself.
And don't drink so much. My mother told me that too. She said, "Don't drink, son, it'll ruin your life."
Number 10. David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff's drunken cheeseburger incident, filmed by his daughter, became a YouTube sensation. His struggle with alcoholism was laid bare for the world to see. Knight Rider star David Hasselhoff became an unfortunate YouTube sensation in 2007 after his 16-year-old daughter, Haley, filmed him drunkenly rolling around the floor of his Vegas hotel while shirtless and trying unsuccessfully to eat a cheeseburger. The video was admittedly a train wreck that was hard to ignore, and it painted an unsettling look at alcoholism as Hasselhoff's distraught daughter kept pleading with him not to drink or he'd be fired from the producers. The actor had reportedly told her to film him if he relapsed, a request that didn't sit well with some experts. To ask a 16-year-old child to tape her father when he's intoxicated with what is a brain disease is unconscionable in my opinion, Dr. Harris Straightnier told Good Morning America. Straightnier added that it was also narcissistic that the Hoff turned his child into the parent.
I really like him. Georg, like George, but in German. Georg.
Number 9. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's Tiger Blood phase was a public meltdown like no other. From trashing hotel rooms to bizarre claims, his wild antics shocked everyone. Following a drug overdose in the late 90s, Charlie Sheen remarkably managed to put his bad boy persona on ice and become a respected television actor and family man for a good chunk of the 2000s. But if you're familiar with the terms Tiger Blood or winning, then you know how long that lasted. By late 2010, the actor was trashing hotel rooms and inviting adult film stars to live in his house as his goddesses as an infamous meltdown unfolded. He referred to himself as a warlock and was fired from 2.5 Men. Sheen also made the dubious claim that he cured himself of alcoholism with his mind, and you'll never guess how that worked out. On a July night in 2014, a couple sitting in a Taco Bell drive-thru got quite the surprise when Sheen stumbled up to their car and announced "I'm so fucking hammered," before showing off his tattoos and offering them relationship advice, according to TMZ. Fortunately, the actor wasn't driving and nobody was injected with tiger blood. That we know of. Number 8. Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin's 2013 was a series of public intoxication and rehab stints. His turning point came with the realization that he needed to change and mature. Josh Brolin did not have a good 2013. He spent New Year's Day in jail for public intoxication, and by November of that year, he was in rehab after getting in fights with a bar bouncer and a taxi driver all in one night. It probably didn't help that he was finalizing his divorce from wife Diane Lane at that time. Brolin didn't dispute the incidents and recognized his drinking was getting out of control. After his stint in rehab, the actor was spotted looking hot and healthy, according to E! News, and so far, he stayed true to his word that his crazy nights won't be happening again. He called the problems of 2013 a turning point, telling The Guardian, "It made me think of a lot of things. My mom died when I was in my 20s. All the impact that had on me that I hadn't moved past. I was always such a mama's boy, but I realized that I was on a destructive path. I knew that I had to change and mature. It was like I stepped back and saw the hamster wheel."
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
won't be happening again.
Are you going to lay off the booze a bit?
That's it. Completely done.
Number 7. Clara Bow. Clara Bow, the original It Girl, lived a wild and scandalous life. Her drinking led to some infamous incidents, including a shocking encounter at a party. Sometimes it's difficult to tell which of the stories surrounding classic stars are real and which are the products of exaggeration or just straight-up lies passed around by bitter enemies. Clara Bow, in particular, was a victim of the latter. There was an almost wholly fabricated article that appeared in a newspaper called the Coastal Times that accused her of nearly every indecency under the sun. Some of the things they printed were actually true, and the wild life that the original It Girl really did live made the nuttier accusations seem that much more plausible. Bow helped establish the modern image of the flapper. She liked to party. She was seen at bars, slept with some men, some of them married, and she flaunted it all on screen. Among the more credible tales about Bow's behavior is the time that the Paramount president, V.P. Schulberg, invited her to a party celebrating a recently appointed judge. She arrived at the party already drunk and proceeded to introduce herself to the judge by aggressively French kissing him in front of his wife, then dancing with him until she was unceremoniously escorted off the premises by studio personnel. Number 6. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart's late-night antics at the Garden of Allah were legendary. His drinking buddies included John Huston, Lauren Bacall, and Frank Sinatra. During his early years as a Broadway actor, Bogart was known for drinking until he fell asleep at the bar and then taking exception with anyone that tried to rouse him. His late-night antics got him kicked off more than one production, but that didn't stop him from finding enough success that he was eventually able to move the bar cart out west to Hollywood. Bogart set up shop in the infamous Garden of Allah, a housing development known for its wild clientele, and the 24-hour lounge that served them even when other bars wouldn't. Bogart's legendary crew of drinking buddies included director and frequent collaborator John Huston, his great love Lauren Bacall, and Frank Sinatra. In fact, it was Bogart who created the first iteration of the infamous Rat Pack.
Tell you why? Because you're yellow. You haven't got nerve enough to pull the trigger while I'm looking you straight in the eye.
Number 5. Robert Downey Jr. Before he was Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. was a Hollywood train wreck. His journey from arrest to rehab is one of the most dramatic comebacks. Before he was a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, RDJ was best known for being a train wreck of biblical proportions. His talent was so great that he managed to achieve success during his peak period of abuse. Despite being one of Hollywood's most charismatic and lauded stars, he couldn't get through the day without a drink in his hand. When he started chasing the hooch with cocaine, he crashed through the bottom and continued to sink. One night after he left a party, His neighbors found him asleep in their child's bedroom and called the cops. In 2001, he was fired from Ally McBeal after police picked him up drunk and wandering barefoot in Culver City. Number 4. Dax Shepard. Dax Shepard's love for Jack Daniels and cocaine almost derailed his career. His recovery journey is an inspiring tale of overcoming addiction. Dax Shepard was in the throes of substance abuse while he was trying to get his career off the ground. Mostly my love was Jack Daniels and cocaine, Shepard confessed. Of course, come Monday, I would be tallying up all the different situations, and each one was progressively more dangerous. I was lucky that I didn't go to jail. Shepard was molested at age 7, but didn't connect it to his substance abuse until his mom called with an eye-opening statistic. Survivors of molestation have only a 20% chance of not being an addict. In my mind, I'd just like to have a fucking great time, he said. But I was going to be an addict. Period.
This is probably going to get pretty radical, but I don't want you to get scared, okay?
Number 3. Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin's battle with addiction ended in 1985. His journey to sobriety started with a simple yet profound statement from an arcade operator. Alec Baldwin got a handle on his substance abuse early, citing February 23, 1985 as the first day of his life through a lucid lens. At 27, he was a regular on the popular TV series Knots Landing, but he was also surrendering to a troubling pattern of addiction that included driving around with plastic cups full of wine and ending benders with marathon sessions of Galaga at a local arcade. There was really a lot of pain in there, he later told ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Baldwin credits the arcade's operator, Julian, for prompting his path to recovery. When the man found Baldwin waiting outside the arcade for it to open, he told the actor, "I'm glad I'm not you."
I asked you a question. You want to apologize to us? I asked you a question.
You guys gotta get out of the middle of the street.
Number 2. John Hamm. John Hamm's portrayal of Don Draper mirrored his real-life struggles with alcohol. His journey to recovery involved therapy and a stint in rehab. John Hamm claims to have little in common with his signature character, the secretive Lothario Don Draper. But one thing they do share is a love for the hard stuff. Hamm credits therapy for his remarkable recovery from a serious drinking problem. He owns his actions, but cites embodying Draper as a catalyst. He told Variety, "It's not fun to live in this guy's headspace year after year." He also had his own wellspring of darkness from which to tap, including his parents' divorce and their subsequent deaths. He told GQ that career fears incited him to scapegoat his liver. As Draper bottomed out, Hamm followed suit. Fortunately, the actor was able to nip it in the bud and entered rehab shortly before the premiere of Mad Men's final season.
Don't talk to me about the greater good, sunshine. I'm the Archangel Gabriel.
Number 1. Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton's incredible career was marred by severe alcoholism. His struggles with personal and professional hardships led to a tragic dependence on alcohol. Joseph Frank Keaton was born on October 4, 1895 in Pequot, Kansas, to Joe Keaton and Myra Keaton. Joe and Myra were vaudevillain comedians with a popular, ever-changing variety act, giving Keaton an eclectic and interesting upbringing. At the height of his popularity, he was making 2 features a year and followed Ages with Our Hospitality, 1923, The Navigator, 1924, and The General, 1926. The latter 2 he regarded as his best films. The most renowned of Keaton's comedies is Sherlock Jr., 1924, which used cutting-edge special effects that received mixed reviews as critics and audiences alike had never seen anything like it and did not know what to make of it. His first appearance in film with sound was with the ensemble piece The Hollywood Review of 1929 in 1929. Though despite the popularity of it and his previous MGM silence, MGM never allowed Keaton his own production unit and increasingly reduced his creative control over his films. By 1932, his marriage to Natalie Talmadge had dissolved when she sued him for divorce, and in an effort to placate her, put up little resistance. This resulted in the loss of the home he had built for his family, nicknamed the Italian Villa, the bulk of his assets, and contact with his children. His hardships in his professional and private life that had been slowly taking their toll began to culminate by the early 1930s, resulting in his own dependence on alcohol and sometimes violent and erratic behavior. Depressed, penniless, and out of control, he was fired by MGM by 1933 and became a full-fledged alcoholic. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more juicy Hollywood stories. Check out our other videos for more scandals and secrets. Comment below your favorite story. See you next time.